Nick was my youngest son. He was 16 years of age and a most lovable child, as all his friends and relatives would tell you. And now, as a result of using butane gas, he is dead and no longer with us.
Just over 5 years ago, my youngest son, David, collapsed and died suddenly after sniffing a can of butane gas.
Our son Jay died inhaling butane gas from a canister that he bought. It was instant death. It was sudden death.
Using this stuff is just like playing with a loaded gun.
We always get taught about the drugs more than we do about the solvents.
If they knew the dangers, they would be more careful about what they've done.
Maybe they do know how dangerous it is, but they don't take it seriously.
We see about 73 deaths a year. It's far more common than deaths from any other form of drug misuse in the teenage population. I mean, for example, we've got data on almost 2,000 deaths in total from volatile substance abuse, whereas there's probably only been about 150 deaths ever that we know about from ecstasy. Of all the deaths we've recorded, about 2/3 of them are age under 19. The commonest age of death is about 16. The youngest we've ever recorded is aged about 7, but we've several deaths in the 9s, 10s and 11s.
This was a substance that wasn't illegal. It was readily obtainable from an obliging shopkeeper round the corner who was quite happy to be onto a nice little earner. But what price do you put on a life? You know, £1 in David's case, just about £1.
I'd never really known of it. You know, didn't really hear of anyone that died of it and that you could actually die from doing that. I mean, now, afterwards, you look on like a deodorant can and you see there's the warnings that solvent abuse kills.
I didn't realise how many people died from it and stuff. I didn't know much about it and I thought, well, you know, he's not going to die from it.
When these deaths are investigated, we find that about 1/3 of them, about 30%, there's no history of previous use at all. And it's quite likely that some of them die on the first ever time they experiment with these compounds, which again is very unlike any other form of drug misuse.
What happened with Nick was that it was only the second time he'd ever sprayed butane gas in his mouth. The first time he'd done it, it had made him ill, and he said that he would never do it again. But unfortunately, he did it again, and 10 minutes after spraying it into his mouth, he just fell dead on the floor.
The deaths occur from a variety of different causes. A lot of them occur from what we technically call sudden sniffing death syndrome, which is actually the heart stops pumping blood, and if you don't do something about that quickly, then somebody will die quite suddenly. A small number of other people die from accidents, so they can have road accidents, they can fall off buildings, they can drown. And then a small number of others die from inhalation of vomit or various other unpleasant consequences of sniffing these compounds. The important thing to do is, if you find somebody unconscious, is to reassure them, to not frighten them or not startle them, but just reassure them until they're conscious and sober again, and then you can be angry with them, but don't be angry at the time. So put them in the recovery position and call an ambulance and hope the ambulance gets there as soon as possible.
After Jay died, when the police searched the room, we discovered I think it was about 9 empty tins of butane, which we obviously had no idea was there. So he had been doing it for some time. We know now that Jay went into a newsagent's in town and actually purchased a canister of lighter fuel. He then from there went to a local toilet, public toilet, and inhaled some of the gas from the canister. He collapsed immediately and he was probably dead by the time they got him to hospital.
For all the places to die, it's like in a public toilet with like all graffiti and like cigarettes and stuff on the floor. And it's like, no, I don't think anyone's there to help him as well. I suppose he just locked the door.
Every day I think about him. You can't just forget about someone.
Jay just dabbled in solvent abuse for, I don't know, a matter of weeks, a couple of months, not a long time. And died from it, you know, instantly, without any kind of warning, wanted to go to rehab, any character change, anything like that.
My friend said to him, Jay, that is really stupid. Do you realise how stupid you are? And he was like, no, it's not that bad. And like, I think it was mainly that we hadn't seen what it does to people. Like, for example, on TV, we'd seen what cocaine does to people and things like that, but we'd never seen much of what solvent abuse does to people. We'd never heard any numbers of deaths and stuff. I only heard afterwards how many people die each year.
The long-term health consequences of using some of these compounds can be quite dramatic. Toluene, the solvent in glue, can damage your hearing, your eyes, your lungs, your brain, your peripheral nerves, the nerves that run down your hands and your feet, and it really can have very nasty consequences. If you sniff butane, then the risks are that you'll die suddenly. If you sniff petrol has lots of toxic compounds in. And of course, all of these things are inflammable, so you stand a real risk of setting yourself on fire or even causing an explosion.
Well, it's completely unexpected. I mean, he was 16. I didn't think people died at 16, you know, because you haven't even started your life. You're still at school.
Didn't really make sense to me until it was like the funeral. Actually, like saw him like go by in the coffin. That's when it really like hit into me. I was just like really upset.
I think you'd have to lose a child yourself to really understand how great a loss something like that can be. You just feel as if your whole world has been smashed.
It's like losing a limb, and you have the phantom pain of the loss of that limb. You think it's still there and it still gives you pain.
I don't think many people are aware of the actual facts of how bad it actually is. So I think if more people were aware of what actually happens and people can die of it, then they'd be less likely to even try it.
Don't even try it. Don't even experiment with it, because like, Jay had done it and he was unlucky.
Imagine your best mate dying from it. Write down the name, or think of your best friend or one of your best friends from the group you go out with, and totally erase every memory of them.
He was always happy.
He was always sort of larger than life, so to speak, and always up for a good laugh.
He was a really, really nice boy.
I used to come down here and we used to play ball in his back shed.
And we was in the newspaper for catching a couple of fish. Got into the local newspaper for that.
Silly things like playing down the river and getting told off by his mum, being a bad influence and things like that, just silly things like that, really.
We sort of go around each other's houses and have a little drink or whatever.
Michael Jackson was his favourite. Whenever his song comes on, Michael Jackson, I always think of him straight away.
Hardly a day goes past I don't think about him, still now.
Birthdays, he crop up and different things where you put flowers on the grave.
Always like he had his whole life in front of him.
Really gutted. It's like part of my life just really disappeared then.
It's 3 years now since Jay died. It's still quite unbelievable, really. It's like a void. Really very painful.
Jay was our only child. He was my parents' only grandchild. And for the last 16 years, all our lives have revolved around him. And just in the click of a finger, he's gone and he's not there anymore. And your life is just totally different. And you just miss him so much.